Okay. All right. We'd like to welcome everybody to our Riverdale City Council meeting for Tuesday, July 5th, 2022. Please let the record show that all City Council members are present, as well as members of the city staff and members of the public. We have asked Mr. Hilton if he will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand with me while we recite the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilor Hilton. Our invocation tonight will be we'll turn that over to Councilor Annie Hansen. She is invited to give that to us.
Yeah, thanks. He should be ready.
Do you want to introduce him, or do you want me to? Or
do you mind?
go.
I'm on a
I can.
different
Sure.
page. Yeah,
That's
sorry.
okay. It is that will be presented by Rajan Zed. He's the president of the Universal Society of Hinduism, and that's at Councilor Hansen's invitation.
Too loud over there.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Zed.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can now. This is Michelle at Riverdale City.
Hello, Michelle, you can hear me properly?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear okay?
Yeah.
All right, we are ready for you whenever you're ready to go.
So you will call me? You will invite me, or should I start now?
You're live now.
Right now, okay. Many thanks to Mayor Mitchell for the prayer opportunity and Councillor Hanson for giving her space to me for invocation in the great city of Riverdale. Starting with Gayatri Mantra, which is considered the most sacred mantra of Hinduism, I shall be reading from ancient Hindu scriptures in Sanskrit, some as old as 1500 before the Common Era, and then interpret in English. And may all rise, please.
He said all rise, please. Rise.
Om Bhurvuvah Svah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. We meditate on the transcendental glory of the Deity Supreme, who is inside the heart of the earth, inside the life of the sky, and inside the soul of the heaven. May He stimulate and illuminate our minds. Astoma Sadgamya Tamsoma Jyotirgamya Mrityur Mamratam Gamya. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Tasmada Saktastatam Karyam Karma Samachara. Sakto Charan Karma Parmapanoti Purusha. Karma Neva Hisam Siddhi Masta Jankadya. Loka Sangreha Mebapi Sampa Shankar Tumrahasi. Strive constantly to serve the welfare of the world. By devotion to selfless, one attains the supreme goal of life. Do your work with the welfare of others always in mind. Om Saha Navavatu, Saha No Bhanaktu, Saha Viryan Karba Bahai, Tejasvi Nava Ditamastu, Ma Vidvisa Bahai. May we be protected together. May we be nourished together. May we work together with great vigor. May our study be enlightening. May no obstacle arise between us. Samniva Kuti Samna Hirdaniva Samnamastu Vomano Yathava Susahasti. United your resolve, united your hearts. May your spirits be at one, that you may long together dwell in unity and concord. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Om. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Zed.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move on to the public comment portion of our meeting. This is an opportunity to address the city council with any concerns or ideas that you may have. No action will be taken during this public comment, and we ask that you please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Hopefully, you've all had a chance to sign the roll outside. It is important that we keep a record of who was here tonight. If you do get up to comment, we ask that you state your name and the city that you reside in.
My name is Veldon Wardle, and I reside in Riverdale City. So I just have comments about, let's see, it looks like it's action item number 1 on the agenda with the rezone of the property. The property actually is right behind my backyard. Abuts that property is adjacent to that. And so just a couple of comments. Mr. Piran, excuse me, who owns the property, actually has been a pretty good neighbor. This is nothing against him or him going for what he wants. Just aside from one issue with some fill that was put in, he's been really good back there. He's done a good job of he sprays the weeds and keeps the weeds down next to our fence line and all those things. And so, I have appreciated him as a neighbor back there. But I guess my comments are first, there's a city plan of what to do with that area. And my understanding is unless there's a compelling reason of some sort to change the plan, I don't know why the plan would be changed. And that was one question I had with the Planning Commission is, they're okay to change the plan, but there's no compelling reason to do so. And so that would be one question I have too, is, why, if the plan is changed, why? What's the compelling reason to change the master plan of the city to rezone that? The second comment or concern I have is about 6 years ago, there were several, probably close, maybe over 100 truckloads of dirt brought into that property back there. And at the time, I know several neighbors in the area came to the city with concern that it was being filled illegally. Mayor Searle, I believe, was the mayor at the time, and Randy Daly, I think, was the city. What was Randy Daly? I can't remember what he.
Same job as Mike.
Was it? Well, anyway, talked to us and told us that while it was illegal and they had asked him to stop and wanted it to stop, there was no recourse that they could take to get it to stop. Well, the recourse was very lengthy. It was contacting Army Corps of Civil Engineers because part of it was designated wetlands that was being filled, and they said that's just not something they're not going to waste their time on, a 5-acre property to come talk to it. So even though it was illegal and he was doing it, and the city didn't have much recourse that they could take, and I understand that. So there is at least 3 feet of fill that's back there, and you can see that from my property. You go out, there's about a 10-foot space, and then it goes up about 3 feet to where it was filled. So my comment, I guess, now is the city now has the opportunity for recourse. Now is an opportunity to say, if this is going to happen, and again, I'm not opposed to development. I understand that we move forward. I get that, I'm okay with that. But I think some things need to happen beforehand. And one of them would be all of that fill needs to be removed, not taken care of. And that's with the Planning Commission, the individual, and I apologize, I don't know the name of the group that's proposing this and wanting the rezone. But he talked about how their engineers would look at it and would do their best and try to get it so that it wouldn't negatively impact the properties adjacent to it. Well, the only way to do that is to remove all that soil. I mean, you can't just move it around and say that it's going to work. And so that's a big, major concern that I have, is that there is a lot of fill there that needs to be removed. It was put there illegally, needs to be removed. When that's done, then I feel like zone the property the same as the property adjacent to it, and we're okay. I mean, I don't have a concern. Like I said, I get that, there's progress, there's development that happens. I'm okay with that. I just don't want all this fill, and when people water their lawns, it will run back right into my lawn and cause a swamp. And again, the gentleman said that they would do their best to resolve that, but he will not guarantee in writing that any issues that are there, he will pay for the expense to fix them. And that's kind of what I think should happen. And if it's okay, and I mean, if it moves forward with just the agreement that they will do their best to fix the problem, well, I guess then I would ask each of you, can I borrow $10,000 from you, and I'll do my best to pay it back. And if you're okay with that as the agreement, then I'm okay with you moving forward on this too. So that's as much as I have. So
Question?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
So bringing in the fill, what's the height difference between your property where it was? Was it level and then it's 3 feet up now, is what you're saying? Or
Yeah.
is it below that? Before the fill and after the fill, where is it in comparison?
beforehand, it was probably about 6 inches or so below where our property level. Yeah.
Now you're saying it's 3 feet above?
Now it's 3 to 4 feet higher than.
And I would, let me ask you, is that at the rise nearest your property line, it's 3 to 4 feet. Toward the center of that property, it's probably more likely.
It's even more.
10 feet.
Yeah, it slopes.
It slopes into a dome.
towards the property.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I'll give this to you. This is, I'm Tammy Donahue, and I live next door to Mr. Wardle. And I have echo the same sentiments as him. I moved into the area 10 years ago, and I was one of the neighbors who called when they were dumping all of that dirt because the men that were dumping the dirt were out there exposing themselves, and I have my grandchildren there during the day. I actually called Granite Construction, who was dumping the dirt, and they said, well, there was nothing they could do, but anyway, whatever. Then earlier this year, I called when they were doing the dirt samples and was told, oh, it's probably the government doing testing, which I've worked for a reputable company for several years, and I know what dirt testing is because I negotiated contracts for that company. And then 2 months after that, they were back there with longer poles doing deeper testing. So I echo those same sentiments. That is a document that I went around and gathered signatures from all the neighbors that this would affect, mostly. And most of them are opposed that I could talk to. So I would have the same sentiments. I'm not opposed to development, but we have problems. We would have problems with runoff. You know, we've got just all that dirt back there, and it's just awful. And I just really would not like it to be back there. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. All right. We'll now move on to presentations and reports. I'll start with the mayor's report. Just one thing real quick. We had Senator Milner come and speak at our sunrise service yesterday, which she did a great job. And afterwards, former Mayor Burrows and I kind of cornered her and talked to her for a minute, and he actually brought up our sales tax issue. And she has not been super helpful in the past regarding that, but she said that she would be willing to set up a meeting probably after the election, like in late November, maybe early December, where we could get together with the other representatives that represent Riverdale, whether it's Katie Hall or Jill Colford, whoever wins the elections, and we can have a meeting and explain exactly what's going on. So that was a good development. And Mayor Burrows has a great relationship with her because of his past time with her. And so I was able to see how that relationship develops. And so I know I keep beating that drum, but I mean, and another thing you could do, maybe email these candidates that just won these elections, say, hey, congratulations on your win. We look forward to working with you at Riverdale. You know, we're glad you're going to represent some of our residents. And every time you can touch base with them, just so they have a little bit of a name or anything like that. And then the only other thing I had, have something with Mr. Brooks that we were going to do.
Thank you, Mayor. This is like a miracle occurring here tonight. our building inspector, Jeff Woody, is not the easiest guy. He's not a spotlight kind of guy, but we twisted some arms and got him here, mainly because, 30 years of service to the city is outstanding, and we wanted to recognize him for that. And Jeff is just phenomenal, and we know he's getting closer to retirement, and as that gets closer, we get more and more nervous because he just does such a good job for us. And again, he's one of these guys that fills in when we need him in all kinds of things, even if it's not related to his job. So we appreciate Jeff showing up here tonight, and his wife escorting him. That's probably how he's here. I don't think he would have come on his own. But I did want to give a few minutes to Mike, where Mike's here, and he is his supervisor, just to say a couple words.
I thought about this, and I'm trying to do it in a way that will keep it short, but to the point, Jeff. So bear with me. Jeff's one of those rare employees, or I don't even call him that, coworkers, friend, associate, that really makes a difference and tries hard in the community to be spot on with all of his efforts and everything he does. He works really hard. I've seen his perfectionistic ways, and also being courteous, but holding people to what they're required to do the right way. He's one of the best, if not, I'd say the best in Weber County, in my opinion, but maybe one of the best in the state as far as the code and his knowledge of the code. He's very eloquent. He's very able to even correct me when sometimes he doesn't agree. He is willing to say, hey, Mike, this is wrong, or I don't agree, or what do you think, and let's look at that. But I appreciate that, because obviously constructive criticism sometimes solves problems even more effectively too. And so he's been really good at even helping me stay centered as I've developed my career and worked for Riverdale and in the time that I've been here, and I really do appreciate it. And we went out east to Maryland for some training a couple of years ago for some FEMA training. It was a really good experience, and I got to know Jeff on a different level. And outstanding person, outstanding employee, great friend, just all around. He's a treasure for Riverdale, and I hope that you all can see that in your limited experience with him. And I think that's all I'll say, so I don't embarrass him any further. But thank you, Jeff, for all the years I've worked with you, and thanks for being such a great employee for Riverdale.
You want to give a speech, Jeff? I already knew what the answer to that was, but I thought I'd try anyway.
Come on.
We had his stuff at last meeting. We generally, with their anniversaries, give him a certificate here. So if the mayor wants to come down, we didn't give them to him because we were hoping he'd show up tonight. So.
All right. Mr. Woody is what I hear people call him around the neighborhood. I'll tell you a funny story about him. So he's our building inspector, and I know he's a good guy, but sometimes the people around the neighborhood don't think he's that great of a guy, so that's how I know he's doing a good job. Sometimes I get feedback about that building inspector, like he's so picky, and that's okay.
That's what we want.
So we have a certificate here for him. Jeff Woody, it's congratulating him on 30 years of service. And then I always feel bad when they do bring their wives, because we have a real nice gift for you, a monetary gift for you, but now she knows all about it. So you may not get this in that way. But anyway, congratulations. Thanks for all you've done.
Ready?
Ready? Let's get out of here.
All right, that's good. Yeah, we are going to miss him. That's one of the biggest shortages employees right now is a building inspector, so hopefully he'll stick around for a little bit. Do we have any reports on the city council assignments for this meeting? No? Okay. And then we'll turn a couple of minutes over to Mike Eggett for the community development report.
Thank you, Mayor. I was jotting down some notes, so hopefully this will be new news. If not, then it'll be news you already know, but it's great to put it on the record again. I don't have any updates on Cheddar's situation yet, unfortunately. It is still forthcoming. They're doing a little bit on site. You'll see there's like a light pole that I noticed went up that's been up recently and some other grooming on site. Again, I still think it's that right away thing. As I hear more, I think once you start seeing foundations, Doug, you'll know that that's resolved and it's going to fly from that point. That's what I can tell you. So they'll move fast once it gets going in the ground. We did receive Shake Shack submittal that is going for preliminary review to the Planning Commission at the next meeting a week from today. So that will start its process. So that's pretty exciting. Take 5, if you drive by, you'll see it's all fenced off, and the foundation, speaking of foundations, is coming up out of the ground. So that one's going to also move pretty quickly on its site. Chick-fil-A, they finally came and re-established their building permit. I think that they're going to start that probably in the next couple of weeks. So when your favorite Chick-fil-A gets shut down for a couple of months, don't be too sad because it'll be improved, hopefully, and more accessible. Maverick at 1500 West, that is coming along. They put their signage up today. You'll notice the pole sign's gone up. Signage on the building's gone up. They got some gas. The gas pumps are getting in place, so that's going in. Concrete's still kind of limping along on the site. You'll see a little bit at a time where they can get it, so that is an issue. We do have Sierra Trading Post and Home Goods have both pulled their permit and are doing their site improvements inside. That's in the old Gordonman site. It's been split. So Sierra Trading Post will be on the southernmost end, and then Home Goods will be next to it. So we're getting 2 new stores there. They're both pretty well-known names, and I think a lot of people in the community will be happy that they're both here. So there you go. There's a quick report for you.
Thank you.
My wife shrieked when she said,
Yeah.
saw the home
Wow.
goods. It scared me.
I've had people asking me about Home Goods, and I just couldn't wait to say it's going to be here. So I'm glad they put a little sign up over there. So it's very popular. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Eggett. All right. We'll now move on to consent items. Consideration to approve the meeting minutes from June 21st council work session and June 21st, 2022 council meeting. Are there any corrections or changes to those minutes other than what we already discussed?
Because I was absent from the last meeting, I'm going to abstain from voting.
Okay, thank you. All right, Councilor Arnold?
Move to approve consent item number 1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That passes with 4 in favor and 1 abstaining. Consent item number 2, consideration to set a public hearing for the truth in taxation process for August 16th. Any questions or comments on this? Councilor Arnold?
Move to approve consent item number 2 is stated within the packet.
Second.
Oh, you got it.
August 16th. We have a motion. We have a second. Did you get that, Ms. Maragoni? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Very good. That passes unanimously. We'll now move on to action items. Number 1, consideration of ordinance 953 for proposed rezone request from agricultural A1 zoning to single-family residential R16 zoning for the property located at approximately 3450 South Parker Drive, Riverdale, Utah, as requested by Hugh Park. Mr. Eggett.
Thank you, Mayor. James and Julie Piran are the owners of the property. Mr. Hugh Park is present. If you'd like to discuss the application after I'm done with a quick review. Surrounding zoning of this property is shown in your map is a combination of A1, R18, and some R2. If you need more guidance on where that's at, please look at the map in your packet. It's on 4 acres of land. On June 14th, 2022, the matter was set for a public hearing with the Planning Commission. Several comments were received by members of the public. When I say several, about 5 or 6 comments on record. A couple more were in attendance in the audience that night. Additional comments were discussed and questions asked prior to the hearing. Following the public hearing with the Planning Commission, they did recommend with a favorable approval of the rezone, the request to the City Council, and the minutes will reflect the voting on that. It was, I believe, a 4-3 voting is what it was. Let's see. General plan guidance for the property is set as agricultural, and it's found in Area 5 of the Riverdale general plan per the land use master plan. Documentation for that's been provided in the packet, and then you'll see hereafter ordinances both for whatever decision the council pursues as ordinance number 953, as well as the application from the applicant, and the reasoning for the rezone request is found in that application on page, I believe it's page 24 or 25 in your packet A through D. And then you'll see general plan documentation, and then the public hearing notice checklist showing that all public hearing requirements have been fulfilled by the city for that public hearing with the Planning Commission. And with that, I would defer to the City Council if you have any discussion or questions for me and or the applicant. Thank you.
I did have one quick procedural question, and it concerns Counselor Hilton. Because his property borders that property, Mr. Brooks, is there anything he needs to disclose or anything?
I think if he just made a disclosure of it, he's fine. There's not a personal financial interest for the most part. So just by going on record and noting that he does live there and he backs into that property, we'd be fine.
So noted.
Okay, that's the only question I had. Any questions or comments? Counselor Hanson?
I know that in the planning commission, the applicant mentioned that they would address the fill dirt. Is there a way that can be a requirement in the future before they begin their, on the final review? Or?
Oh yeah, it would be part of a site plan review. There definitely would be discussion of the fill dirt and a solution to the fill dirt issue. I have a feeling that the city engineer and the geotech would suss that out pretty quickly and require some kind of a solution discussion and an appropriate solution to address Mr. Wardell's comments sufficiently. Obviously, that is all subject to the public's review as well. So if the residents didn't like the conjecture of that report, clearly we could discuss that, but yeah.
Or if we ever got to that point as a council, we could vote.
Clearly,
not to
that
move
could
forward
be
if we
a
were
condition of an
confident.
approval. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, I just wanted to be sure.
that's correct.
Thanks.
So Mayor Searle reached out to me and wanted to remind me of some of the background, and what Mr. Wardle expressed is pretty much how it did happen. He said it was all brought in illegally. The city tried to stop it multiple times, and they basically said, okay, well, we're going to have to stop it when it tries to develop. That's the only way we can do it. And so
Point to that. Sorry, Mayor. Did we not issue a cease and desist letter to Mr. Purin?
There was a letter put together, Roger Worthing signed it, and it basically said stop bringing fill to the property, so yes.
And then a follow-up question, did not the property owner warrant to us that he, if you'll let him just finish the smoothing, he would use it as a farm and plant alfalfa? Is that not true?
That I don't know the specifics of, but it was something to that effect. I do remember, again, Sean Douglas and or Roger would be much better to answer this, but I do remember a discussion about creating almost some kind of a trench or a drainage system along the sides and pushing the dirt up to the center to accommodate so it doesn't drain onto neighboring properties.
For the purpose of farming alfalfa, as I recall.
That, again, I don't know that part of it, but I do remember the terraforming discussion.
That's what I remember. Just wanted to note that.
any other comments or questions? Counselor Arnold?
Anything else?
Counselor Hilton? Did you, well,
I guess as a follow-up to Councilmember Hanson, is the question of remediating that fill not something we should get addressed prior to rezoning?
I mean, if it's that big of a concern, there's nothing that says you can't make that a condition on your approval, which is what I would do if you're concerned about it. And then you got that extra step in there that assures that, if that's not done, this isn't going to be finalized.
And I realize some of this would come up at site plan time, but is there, can we make a condition to either the rezone or the site plan, the requirement that all the two-story homes be built on the north side of the property?
Well, yeah, you can, anytime you do, when you're doing approvals there, you either accept the recommendation, you deny it, or you modify it. If that's a condition that you feel strongly about, I mean, you can always throw it in there. The developer may not agree with it, but if that's what's you're acceptable in doing, then throw it in.
Okay, and one last, sorry, Alan, what legal standing do we have if we were to prefer similar zoning, same zoning as the adjacent property that's residential? Can we do that legally with good standing?
Well, I don't know that I'd focus on that. You need to focus on what's requested. And if you don't want to go that route, make your findings on why you don't want that.
Okay.
Rather than say, yeah, we would approve it this way, because he's the landowner. He has that right to ask that.
Sure.
You either approve it or deny it or modify it. And you make findings on those grounds. I wouldn't I wouldn't go that route. I think that's probably the wrong way to go.
And I would just add to that, then that would signal that they could then petition for
Yeah, and
different zoning.
I was really asking to do it the way you're suggesting, but have that in mind.
So something more like it doesn't match the general plan,
Yeah.
and that's why we don't want to do it.
If that's what your findings are, that would be one of them you would look at. I mean, that you can
They have
consider.
to be clear cut that
Right.
these are the
You wanna
reasons-
make good
these are the
findings.
reasons
Sure.
why.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Counselor Arnold.
If they're done. Forgive me just a little bit because I'm really passionate about this one. So, not this one particular, but so R16. Anytime you zone something, you lose control. Period. They have the ordinance on their side. Once it goes to R16, we're done. There's all these little things that we're talking about. If it's not in R16 in our ordinance, it's a favor. So putting 2-story on the north side or grading, it's a site plan, sorta. I mean, we have some control, but R16, they have control.
It's a done deal.
It's a done deal.
And they could also sell the property to somebody else.
And
as an
more than likely
R16.
will happen
Yep.
that way. So I don't know how many years ago, and I was hoping, Steve, you're probably the only one that's been, and Scott, Chief Brinkman, you probably were here when the flooding, you would probably know, what year was the
90.
flooding?
2011.
So in 2011, I don't know whose house I was in on the north side of River Glen, but the water from the river was backed up and it was coming right in their home. So if you put in whatever feet of fill, and we have it back up, it's easy to say this stuff is going to be this way when it's a drought year and the river's down and all that kind of stuff, but when the river backs up, that water has to go somewhere. When it goes through that bridge, there's a major constraint right there. In 1983 was the same thing, and that place was a lake. Even when River Glen went in, I thought, what is going on here? But in 2011, I was brand new on the council, and it was crazy, the amount of water that goes into that place. And if it's a couple feet higher, we can't designate pillar, all the pillar talk to go down to the bedrock. I mean, we can talk about that in the site plan and everything. They sell it to somebody else. They go, nope, we're not doing it. We're doing slab on grade. You're living with it. People will buy that property. They'll build. They'll move. Somebody else will build in there or not build in there, buy the house, and then they'll come to us and say, what were you thinking? Why were you building on the hillside in 1955, right, when we have a landslide? The illegal fill in there drives me crazy because, we were involved in that. We had letters going out. It was just come back. When we get a flood year again, which we will sometime, that water's going to back up at the bridge, and it's going to go somewhere. And if this piece of property is higher, it's that same house, and it could have been, I don't know if it was yours, Veldon, or somebody on that side, literally had it, and they partly they did it. They had a berm on their landscaping, and it went like that, and it was a perfect funnel right into their back door. It was crazy. This is a serious problem for River Glen, like a serious problem. We're not talking just like inconvenience. I almost chuckled when you said, the water from coming in from watering their property is going to make your house marshy or your yard marshy. The year that, if it comes every 10 years or 20 years, 30 years from 83 to 2011, it comes in 2035 or whatever, these houses are going to be underwater. And it's really a bad deal. And I would be upset at the city today if this passes ever. The city knows that the water is going to be a problem, and if your house is being flooded, and I would cite that legally as a protection to the city, I would want a flood analysis, because we don't know. They can do it, right? stainless here, he'd already have it figured out for us, but where's the water gonna go if this is put in this way? And that's my main concern, is what's gonna happen to the water when we have one of those years again? And so until we have a flood analysis, I would even be in favor of tabling this until we can get some information, because there is no possible way that I would vote for this with this property putting, I don't, River Glen, what, 100 homes or something like that? I don't know how many homes, but anyway, in jeopardy, plus the homes that are gonna be there, because if they put them slab on grade with, you know, however many feet of fill, and then you have liquefaction coming in there, we're just, it's problems upon problems. And so, I'm not gonna make a motion to table it, but that's my stance, is it's crazy to go forward with this. For the developer, I'd have my lawsuit ready for the developer, the city, the world, if I was in River Glen. So,
I have a follow-up comment.
Okay, Counselor Hanson now.
Everything that you just said is exactly what everyone said when River Glen was built. That they were crazy to do it, that all those homes were going to be flooded, and they had all the exact same comments. And so we're talking about a private property issue, so we do have to be really careful about that as a council, about restricting it. And I agree with you, like, all those things should be addressed. If there's an appropriate way that we can require it and address it, I think it should. I know a lot of these issues came up with the Planning Commission, and they said that it could be addressed, so I don't know the appropriate way to move forward. I agree if we could table it, if that's, I don't know what the recommendation of the staff is concerning those issues, if you think they'll be addressed as they said they would during Planning Commission, or can we require certain things before we change the zoning? But I'm nervous about setting requirements that we didn't set for the River Glen developer, and now we're pushing it on to the owners of this property. I have a hard time with that.
Chime in.
Counselor Hilton.
Yeah, before we make a decision based solely on the flood risk, which I note, I concur with everything Councilman Arnold said, and behind my property in the land the city owns, so it's a flood mitigation area. When the river overflowed its banks and overflowed the trail in 2011, I had running water behind my home, literally right at my fence line, because my property is about 3 feet higher than the mitigation area. So there's running water back there, and it's running to try to get back into the river, and the river's blockaded at the bridge. But before we make a decision solely on that and the illegal fill, I'm concerned about, and I know the residents are concerned about, property in there that will devalue their homes. And I think that is a real risk for the city. Not a risk, but a concern that we ought to protect the property values of the neighbors before we just allow a developer to come in. So I'm not so much in favor of this as I am in denying this. That's my 2 cents worth.
Counselor Arnold.
so just to clarify, in 2011, it's not a private property problem, because the streets go in there, the developer puts the streets in, they put all the infrastructure,
And the drainage.
and they turn it over to the city, and so all that mitigation comes to the city. So as a city councilman, at midnight on a couple of nights, I was there with the council surveying what we needed to do, and I think we had to put, do you remember?
You put a new gate in the drainage system
Yeah, we
to
had
stop the
we had
river
to
from
mitigate
backflowing.
Something to do a pump even, I think.
Yeah.
We did put a pump.
So the thing is, the pump puts the water back in the river. When the river backs up and you have the water coming this way and you pump it back to here, it just comes back this way. It was like I don't know if it worked, or as much as the water receded, you know, I mean.
As long as the pump's not
when
submerged, it works.
When Noah got the dove, the water receded.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't pumping it back into the thing. But
Yeah,
it's
and I was just to add to that comment, I was in the meeting with the city officials where the citizens and the developers were trying to blame somebody for this, and they wanted to blame the city.
all over the
And, only by taking those mitigation steps, by putting in a gate and the pump and all that, did we, I think, in my opinion, stop that lawsuit.
Well, and Councilor Hanson, you're right. People told me I was crazy for moving to that area, and my house is flooded twice. So it does flood, and luckily we're in a drought right now, so it's not flooding. But, I mean, that's right where we turned, was what is the city going to do about this? This is not right,
Yeah.
and I, and it's the same thing with the landslide. They came right at the city and said, why did you build houses on this edge? So
The city wasn't even.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If it can be addressed by the developers sufficiently,
yeah,
the
Can-
hard part.
Can I just address that part of it?
Yeah.
When you guys are throwing out these ideas as far as, the mitigation of the dirt and two-story house, and immediately I'm thinking development agreement, because it's the only way we're going to be able to do it. And yeah, we could do it, and we could require those studies and everything, but we may just be right back here again. I don't know that you'll get the answers you want. So it can be done, and we can require those things, and we're going to put in a lot of work, and Hugh's going to put in some time and some money to get this done. And if that's what you want, we'll do it. I don't have issues with it, but you just got to let us know. But yeah, we can work around it. In fact, development agreements have kind of grown in Utah, and we have a lot more options with that now than we've ever had before. So that is an option for us, and we can throw these things in there.
And one more thing I wanted to make sure, as I thought about this meeting tonight, I want to make sure that Mr. Park knew, that it's our intent to have that dirt removed. So I didn't want him to get the zoning and then he's on the hook, he buys the property, and then we weren't clear, hey, there was 100+ dump trucks that came in, and we expect 100+ dump trucks going back out full of dirt, so.
And you might want to
Like,
talk to Mr. Park just to
yeah,
see.
do
I don't know.
you have any
We haven't
comments
had
or
a
have anything
chance.
you want to say, or you don't have to, but you're welcome to. We would invite you to just anything you want to say.
Can I just say something?
Counselor Stevens?
I see this. When you change the zoning, you increase the value of land from A1 to R6 or R8 or whatever it is. But I personally can't support it as long as the fill dirt has not been resolved.
Yeah.
The illegal fill dirt needs to be removed
Yep.
before, for my purposes, for my vote, until that is resolved.
Or otherwise, you're rewarding the property owner for his bad behavior.
Mr. Park, do you have anything?
Couple of things. And I don't know, Mr. Brooks, as far as I think a lot of these issues come up at plat and design rather than at rezone. I don't know, can you say, well, we'll give you the rezone if you do A, B, C, and D? I'm looking at this from a point of view of we're asking for a rezone of our property rights to be able to zone them to what the general plan says that we can do. And we're asking for what the general plan says we can and have the right to ask for. And then it becomes a situation of we let the engineers work out the fill situation. I mean, this is a legitimate way of construction, is to mitigate fill issues. They do it all of the time. Even though that fill was brought in, that was not something that we did. That's not something that, that the previous owner has done that. And the way that we've come up with to mitigate this, we've spoken with the city engineer, we've spoken with the other engineers that are willing to sign off on this and say that this is a legitimate way of construction. And the fill does not have to come back out. And so those are the things that, as I look at this, we're asking for a rezone, and that's where it stops right there. And then we get into the part of, okay, this is how we take care of the problems and the issues, and that's left up to the professionals who have gone to school and have the degrees on how to take care of these fill situations, and how we can build up on that property without having to remove all of that. As far as any slab on grade types or flooding issues, we have no basements in these units.
You're not the one that's gonna flood, they are.
What's that?
You're not the one, not you, that you're gonna live there, but these homes that are being built on this property are not gonna be the ones that are flooding. It's the River Glen that's gonna flood.
So I guess my question is like, what's gonna, by the changes that we make, what's gonna cause it to flood in River Glen?
Well, if you build on a higher platform, the water's gonna go somewhere.
But is it already not going that? I mean, we're not changing.
No, because they just brought the fill in the last couple of years. That's why I think we should table it for a flood study, some water runoff.
So, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean,
We're lay persons. I don't know how much school each one of us have had in that area, but that's why I think somebody that's gone to school can actually come in and educate us on where the
I don't know if they have those, as far as a flood study goes.
Somebody can hire state.
I mean,
Let us know. Anyway, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So, but like I say, I think all of those issues need to be addressed at the point of when we're putting the plat together, not at the point of rezone.
And the thing that worried me is that you'll get your rezone, you'll get your piece of property, and then I don't speak for the council, but I kind of got the temperature on it a little bit, and they're going to say, we want that fill removed, and you're going to be left with a piece of property that you can't develop until you remove 100 dump trucks full of fill. And it doesn't have to do with the helical piers. It's the fill's illegal, and we want it taken out. We didn't want it there in the first place. We couldn't stop him from bringing it, but we're going to get it out before anything gets built. Is kind of the plan.
So, go ahead, Dennis.
Dennis Peters. I live in Cottonwood Heights. I'm Hughes Park, his partner. So my question is, if a qualified engineer that we engage and it's approved by the city engineer to leave the fill there and mitigate it in a different way, would you still be against having the dirt removed?
I wouldn't, not if it addresses the flooding issues, the safety concerns. I think the safety concerns are the biggest ones that we have for them and for the neighboring subdivision.
Okay, follow-up question. The flooding that's occurred on your existing properties, are we to blame for that? Or is the previous?
Heard anybody blame me for it?
Well,
No, but I'm saying who's responsible for the flooding that's already happened?
So as Councilor Hilton has said, the flood mitigation that we've seen in the past. So this property was a lake in 2011.
Right.
You raise the property. I have a business degree, so I don't know about all this stuff. But you raise the land, the water's going to go somewhere to the lowest point. You agree with that?
Yes. Water does fall
that's
downhill.
That gentleman's backyard. So however much money you're going to make on this development is not going to repair his basement.
But so my point is this: we are going to be your savior. You've got all this fill dirt there that's been sitting there that came in illegally. We're going to push it, lower it. We're going to get engineering reports. We're going to do everything that's required by ordinance to build and develop this subdivision. If they tell us that we need to push more dirt here or there in the studies, then we'll do it. But we can't be held responsible for the sins of the fathers, if you want to put it that way, that the property was developed possibly too low, and somehow we're supposed to mitigate. We don't want to increase the problem, but we certainly shouldn't be held responsible to mitigate an existing condition on the neighboring property, right?
What property was developed too low? Are you thinking the river?
I'm just saying, if there's an existing problem with the neighborhood that's adjacent to us, are we supposed to be held responsible to fix it?
If you buy this property, the answer to that question is yes. Because it has illegal fill on it, so it was lower than that property before.
So the flooding occurred after the fill was brought in? Is that what you're saying?
No. The
Wait a
flooding
minute,
was.
you're saying it occurred before the fill was brought in.
No, the area where the fill is
Okay.
was
Well, I think I
underwater.
rest my case then. The fill
Rested.
really is a separate issue from the flooding.
So if you, do you understand that the flooding, so the bridge, you're familiar with the property, obviously. You put the bridge, so the river rises, it hits the bridge, it backs up.
I get
That
that.
property that we're talking about was a lake. You raise that up 4 feet, that property up 4 feet illegally, right? They just brought it in.
What
The
made
river
it illegal?
rises.
It wasn't compacted fill.
They didn't get approval to develop the property.
Okay, so let me ask this
As
question.
the river rises, again, someday that it will, because it has multiple times in my lifetime, it happens again, the water backs up.
So
It's
if-
gonna go other places, and you
if-
have to agree with me, you can
Okay.
say that it doesn't work. but
If
it-
we have a qualified engineer make a plan that's approved by your city engineer that will eliminate the possibility of flooding, now a 100-year storm is a whole different story,
I
right?
haven't been alive 100 years, I've been twice. but-
Yeah, we've had two.
They plan for a 100-year storm when we do storm drain. So we will abide by everything that a qualified engineer requires us to do on both the fill and the construction.
I just note that a qualified engineer engineered River Glen, where my house sits, and it flooded anyway. They engineered the storm drain, which didn't work at all. So you're going to add on to that.
Well, okay. Respectfully, that's your opinion. I think our engineer and the city engineer will find a way to mitigate that. That's our whole point, that these questions will come up at a later stage, so.
And you're saying that the reason that it was illegal fill is because it does not require the compaction.
So
Well,
the storage
compaction
shed
is
spent
for-
a lot of money to compact their fill, and they received a tremendous amount of objection and were declined in their request to build, and only a court order modified that because Ogden City had made previous promises. Otherwise, the storage sheds wouldn't have filled their spot either. All of that was river mitigation area.
Would you, are you aware of building systems that homes can be built over fill without compaction?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That doesn't mitigate that it is all sand and it's all going to liquefy.
Does it matter if it's sand or if it's built on a approved foundation system? Does it matter if there's liquefaction or?
If my yard
Your homes and our
driveway
homes are
sank-
not guaranteed against, okay, let me state it differently. The homes that we will be built in our project will meet earthquake standards far greater than the homes.
the homes themselves, but I'm sure you would agree that pure sand is sure to liquefy in an earthquake, and anything surrounding those piers is going to sink.
No, that's not correct. That's absolutely not correct. If you build on piers, let me tell you.
Mandate that.
Okay, I bought a lot in Riverton, on the side of the hill going down to the Jordan River, okay? The whole subdivision was dry except for my lot. I dug the hole, filled up with water. So we put a perimeter drain around it, and it filled up with water. So what was happening was that lot was built over a spring, underground water that was coming from the Oakers down to the Jordan River underground, and right through this lot. So what did we do? How did we build on it? Any ideas?
I'm guessing you use these piers.
Bingo. Yeah, we used 17 piers. That home is on a solid foundation, just like all the other homes. It's an approved building method. It's used almost exclusively in St. George because of the blue clay.
So the homes that are in River Glen now, are they not on the same fill that we're on? As far as the same undertones
Not my
of what
understanding.
you're talking about with the sands
Certainly
and
not
everything?
sand. My yard is not sand.
But that's my question. We've done research down there and we have not found sand. It's clay.
That's.
And
how many
liquefaction is caused by
feet? In the
sand.
packet it said, what was it? 10 feet of, you have to go down 10 feet?
The
Before
piers,
you hit-
the piers that I put in Riverton
No,
were
here-
down 25 feet.
Here in these.
25 feet. And it's approved. It's used all the time. the fact that it's not used here
I'm fine
doesn't
with it.
mean that it doesn't.
If we get a flood study, because once we go R16, we totally lose control. We had that happen in a subdivision earlier when they came in. They promised us all this cool stuff, and then the guy's just a paper lot person, drew it up, sold it to somebody else, and they did not deliver.
We understand that, and
Yeah.
I've done 3 developments in Riverdale, and all 3 have turned out beautifully. And we are here. That's what we're planning on doing, is building it, and that's why we are discussing this and putting this in. Every single, that's been what, 16, that's over 50 homes that I've done in the last 4 or 5 years in Riverdale. I've worked with Jeff Woody, and I understand the problem that were had over on Ritter Drive with the other company that came in, and the headache and the problems and the issues. I actually looked at buying that piece of property and ended up not buying it because I knew that there were a lot of hill issues, and that I just didn't know how there was going to be some transitions there. It just didn't make sense to me. And now you can see what's happened, and so there's, as we take a look at things, we think through them and we find solutions that we feel like are the best solutions for both the neighbors around, for us, and for the city.
Personally, I think that's great if we see it prior to the rezone. I don't want to give the control of a rezone.
Okay, let's do that.
Fine. Make our rezone request tonight, subject to the geotech and a flood control engineer.
Okay.
We'd have to do that anyway. I mean, I don't think it's really a
I agree
condition.
with that you would
We'd have to do it anyway, so why not make it a condition?
And we've already engaged the engineer. We've already dug 14 holes out on that property, and he's already got all his testing and all his soils, and we're just waiting for the.
So we can table this until that information comes in and bring it back before the council, right?
That's not what we just offered.
That's what I'm
We
offering.
we offered to make this zoning request condition upon those reports. So if we can't prove that we can build homes there and have them.
All it means is you come back to another meeting, we take it, we untable
So
it.
you're asking us to spend thousands of dollars without any assurance that we're going to get the zoning that we've requested.
So you just offered that.
No, I offered, we
You said-
offered.
So the condition based on the R16 is geotech and the flood studies.
Correct.
That's conditional. So if you go to the engineer and they come in and they say, yes, it's great and it's wonderful, then it's already on the agenda. It's untabled, it's passed, and it's there. If it doesn't meet the standards, then we untable it and deny it.
So, Mr. Brooks, could you interpret this for us? Because it seems like we're saying the same thing, but we're coming to a different
No,
conclusion.
I see where Alan's coming from, and the points that he makes are valid. And as I look at it from a city perspective, that does make me nervous when we do rezone. But then on their hand, it's the chicken and the egg thing. They don't want to keep sinking money into this if it's not going to work. So we're at that dilemma. I don't know what the answer is, to be honest with you. I think for their comfort as a council, they would prefer to table it because then they haven't committed themselves. Once we do that, then it's more difficult for me from a legal perspective to fight that if it doesn't work out. So in that regards, I side with Alan on it. I think he's correct on that. But then again, I recognize where they're at because then it's difficult. They don't want to keep sinking money into this. But as the feeling I'm getting is this isn't going to fly. If push comes to shove, it would get denied at this point if they had to make a decision tonight. So I don't know how comfortable you guys are to keep sinking money into this either, and that's the difficult thing.
And
Counselor Hilton
I'll
has a
restate
comment.
what I stated earlier. Just before we start making an assumption that if some engineer says this is great, I still have all the concerns I have always had about putting R16 next to River Glen. I know my neighbors strongly disagree with that. I know it will
Wait, could we see the petition that was entered into the record?
it will almost certainly reduce property values. especially for those that have the larger homes. And so I highly recommend that you go look at your numbers on an R18 and see if you can match the property.
Counselor Arnold had something first. Or when you're done.
no.
I just want to be careful with that because we just put an R16 on the top of Ritter Drive. So.
Yeah, I realize
next
that.
to an R18,
Yeah.
next to an R110.
Yep.
So.
And Counselor
Well-
Hanson has a
And
comment.
I'm okay with it. I think that if we get the approval back on the flood zone, R16, I think there's a need in Riverdale to have smaller lots and smaller homes. And I'm not an expert in it, but you would hope when they value the homes and the property next door, they're valuing it against similar properties rather than tiny houses next to it. But I see the benefit in it for the city as long as it's safe and, we're not going to run into major legal issues in the future. Because I think there's people that need those kind of homes and properties. And so if it came back for me, the flooding and whatever that is, testing, I'd be on board with approving the zone change.
So can I ask another procedural question? We haven't gotten to the public hearing part yet, have we? We're still-
Public hearing was in the planning commission
I mean,
meeting.
we haven't got to the point where the people who are opposed to this or for it can comment.
This is a public meeting rather than a public hearing. They're
Right, but
different.
We were asked to come to the podium.
Because you're the petitioner. for the-
Petitioner.
yeah.
Right.
When those people spoke earlier, they spoke in public comments,
Public
which they
comment,
can say anything during
Okay,
that.
so this petition is signed by, there's no numbers on here, but it looks like about 20 people. But there's no reason stated on the petition why they signed against it. But I think it all boils down to what Counselor
Yeah.
Hilton suggested, which brings us to another point, Mr. Brooks. You stated that Councilman Hilton did not have to recuse himself from this hearing tonight, correct?
That's correct.
Because
He has no conflict. Usually,
no financial,
right, the state of Utah, the biggest conflicts that they look at is a financial one. But even if you have a financial conflict, if you declare it, you're still allowed to participate in the state of Utah.
okay, so what you're saying is he's saying that he has no financial interest in our partnership.
I don't know that it has any financial interest in
He
it.
doesn't. But my point is, and the record will show, you said that you're worried that it's to decrease your property
My
value.
neighbors are worried as well.
And you are too.
Sure.
Isn't that a financial interest?
Yeah, but that still doesn't prohibit him from
Okay.
participating.
Just asked a question.
Just one other piece of information for you two. We are in the process of redoing our general plan. We're just starting that process, and it may show that residential fits on that end of the city a little better. We don't know what the process will end up showing, but that's kind of one of the things you're up against is the plan shows it's agricultural. That hasn't been mentioned in this meeting, but the general plan does show it as the plan is agricultural for that area right now.
Yes, that's the current zoning, but the general plan states that this specific piece of property can be rezoned to low density.
Could I read that just to articulate exactly what it says? That keeps coming up. I just want to make it very clear on the record so there's not any gray area. This is exactly what it says in Area 5. It's the second to the bottom paragraph. It says, a larger property in this area is zoned A1 and may, B developed, or may, space B developed as low-density residential. So that interpretation of may be can go a lot of ways. It could be permissive, could be viewed as being allowed, but that's the wording. So it doesn't necessarily say it's allowing for it has to be allowed. It's saying it's optionally available. That's at least the way I interpret it when I read
Based
that.
upon what the landowner wants to petition.
Well, not entirely, because rezones are at the discretion of the city council. The city council approves the rezone, and if they can articulate a reason to not approve the rezone, it's not necessarily at the discretion of the property owner at that point. The other comment it says is when development occurs, utilities are available and perhaps only slab-on-grade structures would be allowed. So I just wanted to clarify that that is what it says.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of issues, but it really boils down to really one issue.
No, I think they're all mixed
Well,
together.
one
absolutely.
major issue that we're going to somehow devalue the adjoining properties. And our response to that would be, we're going to enhance the values we're going to build homes that are according to your covenants, we can build homes that are that size or bigger on our side of the fence, if you want to call it that. The other engineering issues?
So when we go to an R16, and you put through your lots and all that kind of stuff, you'll have a retention pond and things like that. And if you have green space, you can actually lower lots below 6,000 square feet.
We're committing tonight to build homes that are as big
R16
or bigger than what's in your covenants.
R16 on a rezone has nothing to do with you and what you commit to do, because you go, oh, we don't like what we're doing, we sell it to somebody else, and you get somebody like did the Tony Farms, and they cookie cutter the world in here.
Do you want to make it a condition?
No, you can't do that.
What?
The thing everyone's
You
not talking
can't lock you into building something until we have a site plan and, you know, you can swear those-
How are we supposed to appease the council if you want us to make a condition of flooding, you want to make a condition of grading, of fill dirt, and we're willing to offer you the same houses or bigger, and you're saying we can't do it?
Can I just ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
So one of the big concerns that's been mentioned is if the property sells. Like, we get it rezoned, you guys walk away, somebody else comes in and does something nuts on it, who knows. But when it comes time for the development of the property, regardless of who owns it at that point, would the council still have control to say, this is what we expect with flooding, this is what we expect with these issues that need to be addressed? Just because we're rezoning it, don't we still have the opportunity later when it's built, regardless of the owner, to say no until they fix certain things?
Correct. There's a full subdivision process, just like we've done with land use. It'll go through the whole process, two meetings with the planning commission where there'll be reviews and commentary. Then the planning commission will make a recommendation to city council. City council can ultimately decide whatever the city council feels is appropriate at that time based on the information presented to the city council.
However, you are within the R16 guidelines, and so just like Steve and Mike have been saying tonight, we have to say why we're saying no to whatever.
That's right.
So if they go to R16, we lose some control. Every step along the way, we lose a little bit of control.
But the safety part you never lose. So if there's a flooding issue, there's a flooding issue.
No, it doesn't. When the waters come and it goes into River Glen's basements, they're gonna call and say, why did we do this? And we say, we didn't, R16 did it, and that's an ordinance that we follow, right? I mean, it's just, the thing is, you and I are saying the same exact thing. You just want to guarantee it'll pass if your engineer says it passes. I'm saying, have your engineer say it passes, and then we'll give you the rezone. And I'm saying my portion is 1/5 is all.
Can we ask how many of the council would agree with Councilman Arnold on that point?
I don't know that we should really, I mean, I don't know how binding it would be, but until you have the full story, you really shouldn't be making an advanced decision, and the full story wouldn't be revealed until this stuff's all disclosed. So that'd make me feel really uncomfortable. I mean, if you wanted to give some indication, yeah, I might lean that way, but I'm not going to promise it, I'd be okay with that, but I don't want you to commit on a vote because you don't have all the information. At least that's the feeling I'm getting.
That's our point, to make it a condition of the subdivision, not of the rezone.
Councilor Arnold,
Which
you had
still
something?
gives you complete power over those conditions when we come in for the subdivision.
Councilor Arnold?
So I would make a motion to table this until the flood study or rezone, or the geotech, something with the liquefaction.
Geotech.
And our general plan concerns. So the reason that I'm saying table it is I don't think we have enough information. All it does is leave it on your application's still good. It's just with the city until we can get more information. And so I would make a motion to table.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All right. Let's see, let's go ahead and poll the council on this one, Ms. Margoni.
Counselor Hanson,
Aye.
Counselor Hilton,
Aye.
Counselor Merrill,
Aye.
Counselor Arnold, Counselor Stevens.
Nay.
All right, the motion passes 4-1. The resolution is tabled. Thank you for your time. You can get with the city and see if there's more information that can help that go through. We'll move on to item number 2 now. Consideration of Resolution 2022-23 for proposed AFCU operations building site plan. Property located approximately 4624 South, 1500 West Riverdale, as requested by America First Federal Credit Union and AWA Engineering. Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. America First is represented tonight by 3 individuals, Natalie Nichols, Jake Tate, and why do I always forget your name when we're on record? Tim Snyderman, yes. Gosh, Tim and Kim, I should remember that. Why do I always forget when we're in this venue, Tim? I always forget. Yes, I know, Tim. Sorry. Anyway, they're representing America First on this ops service building site plan consideration tonight. It's located at on 1500 West, or I guess you'd call it New 1500 West, as noted in the packet. It came before the Planning Commission for a final recommendation review on May 24th, 2022. And at the conclusion of the representation to the Planning Commission, they provided a favorable recommendation to City Council for approval of the site plan. There's no public hearing element for this. The general plan designation for this is set as special use district light industrial business park, and the proposed project does comply with the site or with this land use request. You'll see the resolution in the packet for the site plan request at 4624. One noted item is the new address would be 1500 West. As part of that vacation process that is currently going through the Planning Commission, Old Cozydell Drive, it would be proposed to be vacated. So that's why you don't see it here. And the discussion is that we as staff feel comfortable with Old Cozydell Drive. It sounds like in the history, based on the planning commissioner, Cozydell Drive was tied to a previous mobile home park that was called Cozydell Estates that no longer exists many, many years ago. So for that reason, the recommendation from staff would be to drop the Cozydell Drive and just continue 1500 West. Is that okay, Steve?
Yeah, we brought that up in our department heads meeting or risk management. And really, from a safety perspective, it's probably a better fit anyway, because then it's a number that they're looking for if they're on an emergency rather than a name. Those are always hard to find. So risk management did look at it, and that is their recommendation as well. So.
And other than that, you'll see this. I don't know if this is the first time the council has seen it, but the master plan is found in the packet of the kind of the future plan. It's a pretty important document to look at. It does show the future maybe over the next 10 to 15 years. So I just do point that out at this point because it is relative to where America First roadmap is going on this site. And then you'll see the site plan documentation thereafter. Comments from the staff is found in the packet. You'll see the review from my department. I have no issues or concerns of note. The city, like I stated in the work session, the public works director has a few items, but he said verbally that it's nothing that he feels would preclude them from advancing if the council feel comfortable with it. And then you'll see the city engineer's comments relative to his recommendation with the noted items. One item I will also note, they have submitted an engineer's cost estimate, which the council would also need to approve as part of this, but clearly a blanket approval does approve it. If you're comfortable with that, our city engineer has reviewed that and is comfortable with the engineer's cost estimate for the project as it relates to public right-of-way and public areas. And with that, I would defer to the council for any questions you may have of the applicant or me. Thank you.
Any questions, Councilor Hanson?
I have a couple. So the infrastructure costs of moving and upgrading infrastructure, is that all under the development of America First fronting the cost?
Yes, everything is. Even all the public right-of-way, the public road, they're building the entire road.
Okay.
And then it would dedicate that as part of that, yes.
And then, so the other part, I didn't see this in the Planning Commission or in our packet, but was there any consideration about vacating 1500 West where it's part of the historic Lincoln Highway?
Oh, as far like when you say like, yeah, Cozydell Drive or 1500 West, that's really not come up. I didn't even think about that. I don't know that's ever been discussed as a concerning issue. I guess you could argue a portion of it. Well, no, because even that other extension isn't quite linked to the Lincoln Highway. The long and short answer would be no, that hasn't been discussed.
Okay. Are there any concerns that you see?
I don't know of anything. No one's brought anything up. I don't know that, unless you think of anything, Steve, from a historical perspective. I mean, I think we would articulate, were we ever to be tested, that it was relocated at a later date when it does, if it were to be vacated. Again, I don't want to presume that it will be vacated, but in the event that it were, the new 1500 would be the realignment of that Lincoln Highway at that point in spirit, right? So the spirit of the historical, because I understand what you're trying to get at.
Right.
The historical spirit would still be maintained there. It just wouldn't be that old designation. That'd be my comment to that.
Okay.
We do have representatives from AWA Engineering and America First here. Do they have anything they want to add to our meeting tonight? Okay. Thank you. Yeah. I think their eyes got big when we started talking about stopping stuff because of a historical thing. I think all their hearts are probably pounding.
Well, we mentioned it. That's all we can do, right?
Councilor Arnold?
What is the Lincoln Highway? I'm not familiar with the Lincoln Highway.
I think it's from isn't it like the 1800s?
I don't know.
Don't know.
Should have told me earlier.
Never heard of it.
It's
Yeah.
kind of,
Go ahead.
I don't know. There's a whole preservation
Yeah.
historical foundation that
it's
and
kind of,
it goes all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast, I'm pretty sure.
I didn't know Lincoln came out.
It
Yeah.
was, if she talks about it in her book, Ellis.
Cammy Ellis.
Ellis, yeah.
Ellis. And there's a hub on 4400 that's really old, and it's the Carpenters own it from behind, but and it's part of it was a rest stop, I guess, at way station on the Lincoln. But yeah, this is very prevalent.
It's a Pony Express and Stagecoach Road that connected east to west. That's the long and short of it. There you go.
I think your idea to declare 1500 the new rerouted version, great idea.
Yeah, and I'm sure east to west, I'm sure it's happened in other
Deviates.
places, right?
Yeah.
I
Okay,
just think-
Councilor Arnold?
This will be more, I know this is a site plan and everything, but I'm going to try and chastise you guys a little bit to hopefully you take it. So this is a beautiful plan and lots of trees, lots of grass. I mean, rerouted the road. It's just it's really a nice plan, but your grass is terrible right now. So are you going to put in a bunch of trees and a bunch of grass and just let it die?
There we go. We're glad you're here to come and talk to us.
So the plan for the new ops building and our future design and development is not going to be included with grass or sod. So this is going to be, water conscious. We're going to have a lot of shrubs and stuff that will be maintained and look nice. But our plan is to remove the sod as the phases come through. And with the ops center, we're just going to be putting in some not sod. We're going to have one section potentially, if we have an amphitheater, that might have some sod, but for the most part, this is not meant to have dying grass.
And I wouldn't think that America First would do that.
Yeah.
But I have a resident that I happen to live with that watches grass like crazy, so.
Yes. No, we want to be water conscious as
For sure,
we move forward.
Just trees take more water than grass. But it's just, like the streets are lined with trees in the plan and.
We do have some trees, it's just, obviously, we don't have sod, and we've tried to limit. We want to make sure that our campus looks really nice as we've got people coming in. So we want it to not look barren, but it will definitely have some trees, but not sod.
I have a question
Mr.
for you.
Eggett, I think, Mr. Eggett, did you have
I
something?
just forgot to note one thing. We did have a design review committee review of this site. We did discuss landscaping, building architecture, coloration, and signage. They are compliant with our city landscaping ordinance as far as smart sense, watering, obviously all the grass mitigation, everything else. And it from our public works director, he was very, very good with the landscaping. So I just wanted to note that as well.
And it's funny, I had to pull the picture when Councilor Arnold mentioned it because it does show tons of grass, but their plan, I don't think it had any grass on it. I don't think that the new ops center doesn't have a single bit of grass. It's all xeriscape. So.
False information in our packet.
Well, that's down the road.
Well,
That's just a pretty picture for now.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a rendering.
Yeah,
The
a rendering.
design plans do not provide a lot of sod.
On the rendering, I see an amphitheater. Is that an America First amphitheater, or am I misseeing that?
it would be put on for, yes, it would be put on for America First. I don't know if that's still up in the air, if that's going to be provided, if it's just a company, you know, I don't know, area for people to come and
Not a done
enjoy.
deal. It's a rendering.
It's a rendering. That one is more fluid as time comes.
Okay.
America First sponsors Tim McGraw.
Yes. Bringing in revenue, yeah.
More likely to be boring meetings, but
Yes. You know, at least it's outside, right?
yeah, exactly. Okay.
Councilor Arnold.
Everybody, move to approve resolution 2022-23 as stated within the package.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This is any discussion on the motion? Okay, Ms. Maragoni, will you poll the council, please?
Counselor Hilton?
Aye.
Counselor Stevens?
Yes.
Counselor Hanson?
Aye.
Counselor Merrill?
Aye.
Counselor Arnold?
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. Very good, thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to action item number 3, consideration resolution 2022-24, authorizing execution of a second addendum to development agreement between Riverdale City and Bachland Development LLC, as requested by Bachland Development LLC. Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. It's just my night tonight, keeping you busy. Bachland Development is represented tonight by Brandon Ames, who's present if you have any questions for him. Most recently, this matter came before the City Council on February 15th, 2022, wherein we had two options. One was the amended development agreement. The other was an extension on the development agreement for 6 months. At the conclusion of that meeting, the council opted to agree with the Bach Homes Group to extend that development agreement for 6 months from that time. We're now here before the council with the one item which was old clause number 5 that has since been omitted from this recommended second amendment that Mr. Ames and his group has provided us with. And with that, the outstanding item that was of concern to city staff and discussed at that council meeting has been removed. Other than that, in form, the document is exactly the same, and we as staff, I think, feel comfortable with it unless Mr. Brooks has any other commentary.
No, this is another one of those we beat up pretty good, and we just were uncomfortable from the get-go on that, having any say in our piece of property down there. So we'd kind of dug our heels in, so it was kind of a relief that they pulled it out. So we're good with it now.
I had a quick question. There was some other red writing in the packet that we received. Is some of that new still?
You know, there were some smaller tweaks, but actually when I read this, I actually liked this version than the previous one on how they had worded some of those things, but they're pretty minor. They weren't earth-shattering. The big one was that one paragraph in there.
That's why I said in form, but not word by word or verbatim.
Because there was something where we changed the authorization or the approval to the city council from the planning commission that has to do with density a little bit. Is that as the project progresses, they could have a little bit higher density? Is that what I understand that section to mean?
Do you want me to weigh in? Well, basically, what that's saying is, what that's saying is it's just clarifying. Right now, the MU zone already says 13 units to an acre. What that's trying to address or ask is, would you be comfortable with it? And then we discussed this at the meeting on the 15th of February as well. But would you be comfortable with them massing that, but then having large open spaces to accommodate different housing uses in the area? But the density metric wouldn't change. They wouldn't be able to exceed 13 to 1. It's just, it's not clear in that zone whether or not they could mass it. And so this is a clarifying tool to make sure that it's clear that that's what they would like to do. But yet the council or the city staff obviously would still hold them to that 13 units to an acre that they're required to meet for their development. So that's what's saying. And the reason that the city council, that is old language. Even back on the 15th, that was an issue that needed to be resolved. The old language had it per approval of the planning commission. Clearly, the planning commission is not a final say on any site plan or subdivision development. The city council is, so that's why it was updated to say city council. So just make that clear.
Any other questions? I did have a question about the final number of units. For some reason, I was under the impression it was about 700, but was it 897? Is that what?
Again, that's the acreage times 13, and that's the number that it would yield.
Yeah. Okay.
Have they found water yet?
That is a question you could certainly ask Mr. Ames if you'd like to.
Brandon Ames, Layton. No, we have not. We've been absolutely unsuccessful in finding water. And I wanted to point out as well, we removed the paragraph because we didn't want to hit our 6-month deadline. But our intentions are still very open to working with the city on developing the park jointly, or, we're not at all closed off on that. We just didn't want it to be part of the development agreement. And if we're able to come to terms on something like that, we thought we could just either amend or have a city park development agreement or something like that. So we didn't want you to think we removed the paragraph because we're done with that thought process. We just all were realizing that we were good with everything except for that. So let's just stop worrying about that so we didn't hit our 6-month deadline.
Thank you for that.
But if you have any access to water, we would love to know.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Arnold.
Move to approve resolution 2022-24 as stated in the packet.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? This being a resolution, Ms. Merrill, will you please poll the council?
Counselor Merrill?
Aye.
Counselor Arnold?
Aye.
Counselor Stevens?
Yes.
Counselor Henson?
Aye.
Counselor Hilton?
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Yeah, good luck to you in your search for water. Yes. Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, consideration of resolution 2022-25, authorizing execution of development agreement between Riverdale City and Riverdale Commercial Holdings, LLC, as requested by Riverdale Commercial Holdings, LLC. Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. They're represented tonight, Riverdale Commercial Holdings, by Ted Heap, Paul Willie, who's present as well, and then Jake Tate is their engineer on this project, if you have any questions of him. Staff has been working with Riverdale Commercial Holdings as well as Adam Long, who represents the RDA's efforts with this, but has also guided the city in working with Mr. Brooks on the development agreement in your packet. Obviously, this did come before, per House Bill 409, came before the Planning Commission on September 14th for a public hearing, wherein they recommended City Council with a favorable approval for the development agreement at that time. And even at that time, the development agreement, for the most part, was in a pretty good spot. There were just some issues that needed to be resolved with the participation agreement through the redevelopment agency that also impacted the development agreement, and hence the delay why it's come to the City Council at this time. So to make that clear. At this point, the city staff, city attorney, our finance director, our public works director have discussed multiple times the agreement. We feel like we're in a position, I think, on both sides of the table where the agreement is in a good place, and there's no general plan guidance for that. I think that's all I have to say, unless Mr. Brooks would like to add anything, and then we'll go from there, I think, with the City Council discussion.
When did Ted walk in? Was it the first discussion where it was really heated and controversial, or was it the latter ones that got a lot easier? I just wanted Ted to squirm over there a little bit, knowing you guys were in a bad mood. That's right. I just didn't notice, Ted. Mike's correct. We beat this thing to death over the past few months, and I think we've gotten to a point where we feel good about it. And the delay in this case was not Ted and Paul's fault. This was ours, and it was no fault that we could really control. Our attorney was gone, and so we apologize to get those to you so late, and I know they're awfully big, but we got through them as a staff today and feel comfortable with it. The numbers in there reflect what we've discussed and we agreed to basically by handshake a couple of weeks ago. So I apologize we got those to you. We just got them yesterday, quite frankly, the final version. So we had a rough draft on Friday, but we weren't able to plug some of those exhibits in. But yeah, we're feeling good about it. We think we're very, very close and comfortable with where we're at, and I think it's a win-win for both the developer and for the city as well at this point. So do you have any questions on any parts of it, if we can help you? Like I said, they're quite extensive, both this one and the one for the RDA. They're big documents, but they're quite involved. If you've seen some of those past RDAs, this is not uncommon. They're pretty big and extensive. So this involves all kinds of stuff. This is a crazy deal.
Mayor?
Yeah.
This is my own personal comment, and I'm just really encouraged to see that we've come this far. I think it's looking really good, and I apologize for the delay too. I didn't get a chance to review the documents, and so if we can't table it tonight until the next 2 weeks, so we have extra time to review it, I'm probably going to have to vote against it just because I don't think attorneys can sign things without reading them. So,
Yeah, we don't want
I
that.
feel really
so.
good about it, and it's sounding, from all the information from the city staff, it's sounding like I'm really glad that we're able to move forward to this point. But that's kind of where I'm at personally, and only for that reason.
I think if that was a consensus feeling, we don't want anybody voting against it because I think we're close enough. This has got to go at this point. So I don't want to speak for Ted and them because I know it delays them, which is more cost and stuff. But I don't want it to get shot down. I wanted to give it a serious consideration. So if that's our other option, that would be our preference as a staff. So,
Councilor Hilton.
Ted, do you want to step up and tell us how bad you would hate it if we delayed?
I just don't want him to take my diploma away.
I have no problem.
Stevens?
I have no problem voting for it tonight.
And neither do I. But
Counselor
we ought to give Ted his time.
If you have anything to say, you are welcome as the.
I know there's a big pipe you got to order and you need to hurry. You always do.
Boy, I don't know the answer to that question. The interest rate increase over the last year has been just killer for us, and I just noticed that it came down. It's gone up and it's gone down in this last 2 weeks.
Oh, so it's in your favor.
Yeah, so we started at 3, we went to 5.5, now we're at 5, I guess. I don't know where we are, but as far as time goes, we'd like it to be approved as soon as possible. If there's a way to do that, let's do it. But we're sufficiently softened up at this point to do whatever we need to do.
Are
to
you
get
sick
this
of us?
done. We love Riverdale City and plan on being a wonderful community participant.
Good answer. Good answer.
So, it's actually true, but this has been a little painful. But mostly that's true. So
Thank you for your patience.
all right.
Any other
I'll
comments?
welcome back on the team.
Councilor Arnold.
I'd move to approve resolution 2022-25 as stated within the packet.
And I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that? Councilor Arnold.
Throw one thing out for Annie. So you don't have to read everything and approve everything because you're an attorney. You can approve things on the recommendation
And the recommendation
of
of
the staff,
I
which
think that
was
they're
approved by an attorney.
But you don't trust him.
I trust him. That's not what it
I mean,
means.
You know, he's an
you're more
attorney,
letter of
you
the
know
law
that.
than I am. So, anyway, just wanted to say that.
Okay, that's a discussion on the motion. We did have a motion and we had a second. Ms. Maragoni, will you poll the council on this resolution?
Counselor, excuse me, Counselor Stevens,
Yes.
Counselor Hanson,
I'll abstain.
Counselor Arnold,
Aye.
Counselor Merrill,
Aye.
Counselor Hilton.
Aye.
And there we go. We have it approved. Fantastic.
A year.
We are very happy about that, and we do appreciate all the work that you guys put into it and your patience. Councilor
Can I
Arnold?
just ask one question?
Yep, you can.
So as far as the way the city looks, and I know you purchased those properties and things like that, do you know when you're gonna be moving forward as far as?
Hurry.
Just care of the, whether it's a sign that says, and I'm not mandating anything, I'm just saying whether it's a sign that says, hey, this is what's coming, so these dilapidated houses or the houses that kind of were being taken care of are no longer being taken care of because this is coming, or something to.
Councilor Ellis only moved his truck out of that house about 2 weeks ago. So I don't know.
A lot of what's driving it now is the irrigation season, and we can't.
Sure.
The first thing that goes is that water line, and we can't touch it until after September, October. So that's about the
But
time
it's
we
also,
can start.
like, you can knock the weeds down, you can do lots of stuff, cause up on Ritter Drive, you know, they didn't do a great job, but they at least made an effort to do it. So as you go on Cozy Dell, that's gonna be vacated, you know, the Lincoln Highway, that you wanna kinda have that preservation in there and stuff, so.
Councilor Stevens?
Just a thought. If there's a chance you need some fill dirt, we might be able to work out a situation for you.
Oh,
That would
geez.
really help
That
us.
was too soon, Councilor Stevens.
I got
let's
I
not
got
do
one
this.
question for Ted, and that is, I see a lot of warehouses still, and I don't see a lot of restaurants and other things. Is that still in somebody's mind somewhere? Just nod. That's all. I know you can't tell us, but just nod.
Absolutely, there is in my.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you once again. Thank you for all the effort you've put into it. We'll now move on to comments from the city council. Does anybody have any comments for the end of this meeting? Anything from the city staff?
No, not tonight.
Okay. I don't have any as well, so a motion to adjourn to be in order.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you for coming to our meeting tonight. Yes, we
should
do.
applaud Ted for his patience. And applaud Steve for his. I don't know who had the more patience.
And Bart for the best comment of the day.
Yeah, Bart for the
I know,
best.
that
That
was
was
a-
perfect, Bart. I didn't know you had it in you.
I did.
I appreciate the attention.
Do another one. It's not a city council meeting.
That was generous.
I mean, it all sounds really good. I just, I couldn't get through the full 100 pages during lunch, so. Sorry. I'll try harder next time.
I don't remember. I don't remember the RDA being.
Yeah, we could really use your help with that filter.
You want to go right into the RDA? Does anybody need a break?
Nope.
No, let's just go.
Everybody's good? You want to just move forward? Yeah. All right, we'll go ahead and start our Riverdale City RDA board meeting for Tuesday, July 5th, 2022. Please let the record show that all members of the RDA board are present, as well as members of the city staff and the public. We'll now have a time for public comment. If anybody wants to make any comments to the RDA board, they can approach the mic, and please try to limit your time to 3 minutes. Seeing none, we do not have any presentations or reports. We'll move on to consent items. D, consideration to approve the minutes from the April 5th, June 7th, and June 21st RDA board meetings. Are there any questions or comments or corrections to those? Board member Arnold.
Move to approve consent items.
We have a motion,
Second?
and we also have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. That passes unanimously. We'll now move on to our action item number 1, consideration of resolution R 2022-03, authorizing execution of a participation agreement between the redevelopment agency of Riverdale City and Riverdale Commercial Holdings LLC as requested by Riverdale Commercial Holdings LLC. Mr. Eggett.
Thank you. Representing this group tonight is Ted Heap and Paul Willie, and then their engineer on the project, Jake Tate with AWA Engineering Group, is present as well. This agreement has been worked on at length by the city redevelopment agency attorney, which is Adam Long. We appreciate his time and effort on that. It's been a lot of back and forth to get this correct. The participation agreement is a pretty healthy document, as you'll see in your packet, with a lot of financial information and otherwise legal information. Our city finance director and our public works director have also reviewed that and are comfortable with what you have in your packet. On March 15th, 2022, as noted, the participation agreement was initially presented to the RDA board and discussed. At that time, no action was requested other than they want to make a presentation. Following that, the direction was to work through the participation agreement to finalize it. Both parties have done such, and it's back before the RDA board this evening. There's no general plan guidance for that, and just a point of note for the RDA board, the city council has approved the development agreement on the same project at this time. So with that, I would defer to our city attorney if he would like to say anything on behalf of the city. In also, I guess he's the RDA executive director, so
Yeah.
as RDA executive director, and we'll go from there.
Same thing as before. I mean, this has been reviewed. We've hammered this thing back and forth, and we're comfortable with it as a staff, and we feel we're ready to move forward. Just a different body, different sets of obligations and titles, but it's just another agreement that we need for this to be completed.
Any questions from the board? If there's no questions, a motion would be in order.
Give me a stink eye.
All right, Mr. Arnold.
Motion to approve resolution R 2022-03 is stated within the packet.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and we have a second. Ms. Maragoni, will you please poll the board?
Mr. Arnold? Mr. Merrill? Or Ms. Merrill?
Good.
Yeah, that was good.
Aye.
Ms. Hanson?
Aye.
Mr. Hilton?
Aye.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
All right, that passes unanimously. Very good. We're excited to participate with Riverdale Commercial Holdings LLC. Any comments? And we need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Good job,
That's
guys.
the trick.
Did not everybody
Okay,
J.C. Hodges' comments that the state law stipulates a yes or no, not yea or nay?
Who cares what? You?